Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Craig Otto. I'm a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt. Thank you for joining me. You can check out my website at www.ottoopx.com. Today, we're going to talk about yellow belt training. This is the video 2 part to a 10-part series. This is actually the third video. I do 5 training videos, and each one is followed up with a training or a follow-up training video of hands-on. So this is the third video because I had video 1, which was about current state and learning about that aspect of continuous improvement. And then I did a Lego simulation current state in video 1 follow-up. So today we're going to pick up learning more about how to make improvements. And then on video 2 follow-up, we're going to use what we learned today and put it into action. My intentions for all of this training is to provide you with some basic insights and understanding of what operational excellence is and how to use it, and hopefully it will help you on your continuous improvement journey. Again, I like to use a operational structure for continuous improvement. It's a hierarchical structure. Everything is driven from what I call a VSA, or a value stream analysis. That is the plan to eliminate the waste that we've identified in the current state. The rapid improvement event is where we go and execute and actually eliminate the waste. Problem-solving corrective action events are events that try to eliminate flow stoppers. So once you eliminate waste, that will make other types of issues more observable, more present, and you'll be able to see what those are. But the key is you got to address them, because if you don't, they can actually be very painful for your process. So in our example, last time we had a Lego truck simulation, and we developed a current state of how long it took to do all the different processes. And we took measurements of all the inventory and distance and space and quality metrics and so forth. And we captured all those. And then through our continuous improvement of implementing the 4 core lean tools, we'll be able to see improvements to our future state. And so as we do each of these iterations of improvement, eventually we will hopefully get to the future state. But until then, we'll kind of track our improvements as we go. We use the A3 method. Last time we was able to put together the first 2 boxes of our A3. We did our issues to be addressed, which was that we're lacking our lean core tools, which is 6S, standard work pull systems, and one-piece flow. Current state was able to capture a bunch of different metrics and see what the operators were going through in our Lego simulation. And then by using the value stream analysis, we're able to identify the improvements that we're going to make with the core tools. So what we're going to talk about is when we go into this Lego simulation, we're going to use what's called a rapid improvement event. The same thing will happen in your operational excellence journey. You're going to have to go and implement things through events. The purpose of the event is lean training. You're helping people learn the tools of lean manufacturing, as well as get hands-on experience with it. And so it's important to start every event out with training, and use that sort of as a just-in-time training, so that when you train them, you're able to go out and start using the tools. And we're going to talk about one of the tools this video, which is 6S. And we'll also use what's called a spaghetti diagram. And so we're going to teach you how to do that. And then when we go to our Lego simulation in video 2 follow-up, you'll be able to see those tools in action. All right, just a reminder that the core tools are 6S, one-piece flow, standard work and pull systems. Our Lego simulation will actually go through each one of these tools one by one, and you'll be able to see the power of them and how beneficial they are. And as mentioned, this video specifically is going to focus on 6S. All right, so for 6S, the first S is sort. And order does matter, and I'm going to demonstrate that through this training. But we're going to go ahead and start out with sort first. And I want everyone to understand that that is the process of removing things that you don't need from the workspace. So it's extra items. Those things that are in the way, creating space that's being taken up, that creates distance. And anytime you have distance, distance is the enemy. Distance means time, it's motion, it's waste. And so we have a little diagram here. The right side, you can see the workstations. Each of the different shapes represent a different type of workstation. And the parts on the left, each of the shapes will match up to that. And so one of the things I want you to notice is the blue bars in there represent the things that are kind of out there in the way. And anytime you're out in a factory, you're going to have a lot of stuff that may or really shouldn't be there, but it just kind of builds up. It's kind of like in your garage. You do spring cleaning, and then by the time it's fall, you got all this extra stuff kind of in the way and taking up space. The same thing happens in a factory or in any business, really. The items will just start to pile up. And what that does is it creates distance between your workstation and the parts that you need there, as you can see. In this example, with distance being the enemy, just look at the first station, the red shape there. You can see the distance that is between the workstation and each of those shapes. And that distance means it's a lot of time. And so it's important that we get rid of that, the blue items, so that we can see what we have left so we can do the next S, which is straighten. And I wanted to bring up the point that it is important to sort first, because let's say you didn't sort first, maybe you decided to straighten first. So what happens when you do that? So here you can see we're able to move all the shapes a little closer to their workstations. The problem is there's still items in the way, and it's still creating distance, right? So that's why it's important to do sort first. And when we sort, one of the things you want to do is create what's called a blue tag area. And what I mean by that is just a place designated to bring all these unused items and put it in there so that each item can be reviewed and dispositioned. Because sometimes you don't want to throw away everything, right? Other areas may have uses for each of the different items that you have identified that you didn't need in your area. And that's fine. And that's why we have the blue tag process. So what's going to happen in this sorting phase is you're going to go through and get all of those little blue bars, and we're going to sort those out. And all of those will then be placed in the blue tag area, where those items can then be dispositioned and either scrapped or moved to a different area or reallocated to another group that may need it. And so therefore we're left with all the different shapes there, the parts, and then we have the workstations. So the goal then is, now we have this clear, now we can move to the next S. And so just a summary before we go to the next S, which is straighten. Distance is the enemy. So by getting rid of the things you don't use, that helps up free space and creates less distance. And so this creates the opportunity for creating flow, as well as making straightening possible for you to do it the best that you can. And of course, the last step, as a reminder, you just disposition the unused items. And the rule of thumb for me is, when in doubt, throw it out. Because a lot of times when you keep stuff that you may or may not need, when you actually do need it, you won't remember where you put it anyway. So my rule of thumb is, when in doubt, throw it out. But sometimes things are valuable or unique, and so therefore you may not want to do that. All right, so straightening, as I mentioned, this immediately follows the sort activity. It's where you organize the items, whether that's your tools, materials, equipment. All of that needs to be organized in a manner based on the amount that it's used. So items used more frequently, those should be closer to the workstations. And so here we have our little example here. The goal is to straighten those and get them nice and close, just like I did here. So you can see each of the different shapes are now lined up right in front of the workstation. And the way that you do this is, the things that you would use, you can see our little chart on the left. The items you use daily or all the time, the distance should be extremely close. Okay, that's why I have the green bar under daily, and the distance should be small. And then as you move to the right, you can see our little exponential line there. So things that are used weekly, that can be a little bit farther away. And then as you go to items that are maybe used not so often, the distance can be much farther there. That way you're able to create the least amount of motion possible. And motion is that waste. All right, so just a refresher of kind of what the purpose of these 6 S's are. I'm going to go through them. Really what I just showed was the actual eliminating of waste. It eliminates that physical distance. That's the power of these first 2 S's. And then from a principles standpoint, sort of that know why, what we're doing is we're systematically removing that waste. So now we're going to talk about shine. Shine is, a lot of people think it's just about cleaning, which cleaning is an important piece to it, but it's also about making the area visual, and so that you're able to recognize normal from abnormal, making those problems visible. And so here in our example, I'll let you know that there is a problem here, and you may or may not be able to see it. Most likely is you can't see it, because it's not an area that is 6S. It's much like that current state that I began with when we started looking at sorting. And so by doing the first two S's and keeping things clean, this is what we can start to see. You can see which shape are we missing one, right? All the other shapes we have 5. And as you can see with the diamond, the number 2 diamond is missing one. We only have 4 diamonds when there should be 5. And that's what I mean by the problems are visible and the workplace speaks to you. Much the way like in a machine shop, the goal is to keep the machines clean so that if there's an oil spill, you're able to visibly see something happened there, something went wrong. Whereas if the machine shop's dirty, it's not clean all the time, you don't know if a machine is down or having issues because it's just a part of the normal. So it's important to keep things clean and organized so that the workplace can speak to you. And really, when it comes back to the purpose of Shine, really it's about that mental distance, being able to connect things in your mind quickly. And so I'll say eliminates that mental distance. And really that goes back to, in terms of the principles, that is about immediate problem recognition. You're able to see something's wrong as it's happening so that you can address it and fix it right away. Safety is the 4th S. Really that's about making sure that the other things that you're doing is not creating an unsafe work environment. It's about looking at ergonomics, reducing the burden of the operators, just making sure that everything is done safely. And of course, in terms of purpose, that's really about eliminating risk, right? We don't want to put our employees in risky situations, as well as from a principle standpoint, that's where you get into respecting every individual. And so that's the principle there. Standardize. So standardize, this kind of is a little bit different than the first 4 S's because it's really meant to counteract a law. And so we're really trying to establish a routine of excellence where we repeat these first 4 S's. And the reason we try to repeat those first 4 S's is because there's a law that actually goes against what those first 4 are trying to do. So that law is the second law of thermodynamics, which is where orderly things move towards disorder. Like everything gets worse over time. And it's as true as gravity. So it means it's going to happen. And a lot of times people talk about sustainment. Why doesn't my 6S effort sustain? Well, it's because that unless you apply energy to this law, it's going to happen. And so you're not going to sustain. If you don't do these first 4 S's over and over and over, it will get worse. It will not sustain. It is a law. It's as true as gravity. And so it's super important that the standardize, we make sure that we have this in place so that we can continue to maintain the excellence that we've established to keep that waste eliminated. Because over time, as you can see, the little blue bar was added, and then another one adds, right? Over time, things pop up. Things get in the way, right? I mentioned our garage, cleaned out a garage earlier. Things fill the garage right back up, right? Unless you're doing this all the time, you're constantly going to be doing a spring cleaning where you're putting a lot of energy. The goal of this is just do it every day. Don't allow the stuff to pile up, but do a little bit every day to counteract that second law of thermodynamics. So here you can see, I just keep adding in more things that are getting in the way, and you can see it's creating distance with the parts, with the different shapes. They're getting further and further away. That means that that's more motion, that's more time. So, and the more space you take up, you start to lose parts, start to lose tools, right? Think you can't find things. And so, what's some of the issues? Well, you gotta sort, right? So there you can see we sorted, then you straighten, right? So the goal is straighten it back out. So now you can see that we're missing a couple things, right? We're missing some number 1s, we're missing some number 4s. That's the shine aspect, right? So we shine, we get those back in place, look for safety concerns, and then standardize, right? Keep doing this. Keep doing it over and over so that we maintain that level of excellence. So from a standardization standpoint, it exists because of the second law of thermodynamics. We're there to try to keep counteracting that law, keep fighting it. Because if you don't, that law will win, right? It will happen. And from a principle standpoint, we're trying to help establish that routine of excellence. All right, and then the last S is sustain. This one is about establishing sort of that external resource to monitor the sustainment effort and sort of create that cadence of accountability. I mean, yes, the teams that implement this, they should use the standardized to make sure that they sustain. But sustain is about kind of that external look and that external accountability to help make sure that things stay in place. All right, so here we can see we're going to maintain these S's. So sustainment might look something like creating sort of a cross-team evaluation, maybe like a cross-functional effort where we do self-monitoring audits. You might have an external lean team. So you might have a group of people who are dedicated in your facility to nothing but continuous improvement, and maybe they do the 6S audits in your area to give you feedback. It could also be, I know when I've implemented, I've done team awards where the best teams that are maintaining this get awarded. So that kind of drives that desire to keep improving and sustaining the efforts. All right, so again, with the purpose, again, the second law of thermodynamics is really being counteracted through the standardized and sustained part of the process. And then the principles of that is that routine of excellence, that cadence of accountability, right? Accountability is something that needs to have a cadence, something to where it's done daily to ensure that we're keeping up with the performance. And so just a quick summary, again, order matters, and sort is super important. That's the first part of getting rid of that distance. And then straighten kind of pulls that together, make sure that everything is close based on the amount that it's used. And then we get into shine, which is about that visual management, making sure that the workplace speaks to us so that we're able to see and identify abnormal things and get those corrected. Of course, safety is reducing our risk, improving our ergonomics, right, and giving respect to our people. Standardizing is what is the repeating of the first four over and over to ensure that things are sustained to counteract the second law of thermodynamics. And then sustain, which is that external monitoring, that external resource to make sure that we're accountable to those 5 S's before it. All right, and so we talked a lot about 6S. Another piece to that is the spaghetti diagram. And I like to talk about spaghetti diagram because it is a way of visually seeing the waste. And so we'll do this in our Lego exercise too. But what you do is you kind of map out the traveling to either, whether it's station to station, to get your parts, to get your tools, your equipment, going from department to department. Whatever it is, you map that out and it looks like spaghetti. That's why they call that a spaghetti diagram. And that also visibly represents the waste. So as mentioned, you can visually see the waste. And of course, I've probably beaten this into you after all of my videos now, but distance is the enemy. And so by reducing distance, we can reduce waste. And so, we'll do these rapid improvement events. You can see my little RIE bulldozers there where we kind of identify all of this waste. And then we go out to the floor. And what we do is we go through and do these rapid improvement events for the different stations. And we'll do this with our Lego exercise as well. But we'll come in, we'll do an RIE on station A, an RIE on station B, C, and D, right? We get them reorganized, sorted, straightened, shined, and then we'll redo the spaghetti diagram to see how much waste we have now, and then we can compare that and tally up the amount of distance reduced. It'll also create a sense of hours per unit reduced or time reduction. And you can see before and after, it's a huge difference in terms of waste. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of talk about now how all of this works with our A3. So some of the things that you can put in your gap analysis as you use 6S and spaghetti diagrams, you can put that in your gap analysis. Also, if you're doing flow stoppers where you're using problem-solving corrective action tools like a fishbone diagram, I put some of that in there. You might do like a 5Y. Those are things that you can put in your gap analysis. And of course, with the improvement approach, we're using the 4 core tools. That's how we're going to get better. That's how we're going to implement and reduce waste. And so next video, we're going to jump in and do all of this 6S and spaghetti diagrams with the Lego process, the Lego car simulation. And we'll try out and time some of the experiments that we're doing to see how much better our process gets just from using 6S. And we'll repeat that with each of the different tools. All right, so just a reminder, that's what we've talked about was really the rapid improvement event. Some of the training that I gave on 6S is something that you would do in the first part of an event like that, even spaghetti diagram, and then you go implement the tools and you go reduce the waste, and that's what the Rapid Improvement event is all about. So there you have it. This will conclude video 2. This is the third part of the video of the Yellow Belt series. And next video will be video 2 follow-up. It will be how we take these 6S tools and implement in the Lego simulation. You'll see the power of those. We'll document the amount of savings that we get from it. And then we'll go in the videos from there on out. We'll keep learning about a tool and then experimenting with it and doing the Lego simulation. And that way, each of the tools you get to see the value of them and the power of them. So that will wrap up everything that I had planned for today. Thank you for your time. Make sure you like my video, subscribe to my channel, check out www.ottoopx.com, and I encourage you to get into the forums on there, as well as I encourage you to use the start out with the Journeyman program, where you go through the white belt training, as well as some of this yellow belt training, and much more. And I think it'll really help you as a operational excellence professional really grow and develop your career and help your journey of continuous improvement. Thanks for joining me today. God bless.